Good Monday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. We are still waiting for word on a Deshaun Watson suspension. Sue L. Robinson has not issued her decision yet on that disciplinary hearing. There is some news coming out. This comes from Josina Anderson. After telling me last week the decision was not expected in the Deshaun Watson proceedings, this week, league source says it is possible, not saying anything else. That's all she has right now. Hashtag no guarantees. Along those same lines, kind of interesting, Albert Breer on the Dan Patrick Show talking about why he does not believe the NFL, the league, would appeal any sort of lesser suspension. Here's Albert Breer from the Dan Patrick Show.
My guess would be they wouldn't fight it. And I know that sounds crazy because they've been they've very forcefully gotten word out there, right? And the reason the settlement talks fell apart is because they were insistent on a year. And now they're seeking something more than that, which is an indefinite suspension, which under the CBA is banishment, right? Like it's like almost like he's not an NFL player. So the NFL has sort of been forceful in letting their stance be known. Why would they do that? Like if they know that that's angering the U.S. District Court Judge, Sue Robinson, why would they do that? They do that because they think things might be going the other way, and maybe they don't want to fight another round on the back end. And so at least it's known out there now what they were seeking. The biggest problem that the league has now, if it does come down to be 6, 8, 10 games, is they negotiated this process 2 years ago with the union. This is the first high-profile case. And what are you saying if in the first high-profile case you're completely undermining the process that you just put in place, especially when that process was driven by a lot of owners? Like, Dan, you remember how angry Jerry Jones was over the Zeke Elliott thing, right? Like he was really, and the whole premise of Jerry's argument and a lot of other owners' arguments at that point was, why are we in the business? Why are we trying to be the FBI here? How about we just let law enforcement take its course? And how about we let others lead us through the process? And if we have to outsource this, maybe we should outsource some of this.
Again, that's Albert Breer talking about why he believes the NFL will not appeal any lesser suspension of Deshaun Watson. Breer also went on to talk about the owners and the players' union alike wanted this independent arbiter.
But we keep stepping on rakes when it comes to these things, whether it's Josh Brown, Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, Adrian Peterson. They've messed it up so many times. The whole idea of negotiating that thing 2 years ago was take it out of our hands so nobody can point the finger at us anymore. So I think the way for the NFL to have its cake and eat it too here is to get word out there that they were looking to be really tough with Deshaun Watson here, but ultimately this is the process they put in place and they have to let that take its course.
And again, still awaiting the decision on the length of the suspension, if there is any suspension, by Sue Robinson, the retired district judge. All right, Peter King from the Monday Morning Quarterback fame, talking about coming to Browns training camp. Training camp gets underway, remember, Wednesday. So King will be out at training camp and some of the things he's trying to find out relative to the Deshaun Watson contract.
When I go to Cleveland, I would really like to talk to Deshaun Watson, even though I think his contract is an absolute abomination. I can't believe that the Browns did that. So I'm going to try to talk to all the parties involved. Hopefully I can, but I guess you'll have to look at Football Morning in America next Monday to see how I did.
I'm going to guess that the last 30 seconds might preclude you from talking to Deshaun Watson.
Dan, I've said it 48 times. I'm not, and it's just the way I feel.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against those guys. I like those guys, but I vehemently disagree with what they did.
And with that, let's welcome in Tim Bielik. Tim, it's important to note, Peter King is an old school kind of guy. I think the thing is the Browns have been ahead of the curve a number of times, and I think the contract status in the NFL is changing. It will change. The salary cap's going to continue to go up because the league revenues are going to continue to go up, and you're going to see more and more contracts, more like basketball, It's just the Browns happen to be the first, so there's going to be a lot of consternation on them.
Yeah, no question about it. And I mean, we also have to consider that, if the Browns didn't give Deshaun Watson this fully guaranteed contract, who's to say someone else wouldn't have eventually done that to sway Deshaun Watson coming to their team instead of coming to Cleveland? But it's, because the Browns did that they're the ones kind of in the crosshairs there, that they're the ones that offered this contract with the controversies surrounding Deshaun Watson, when he's going to play, if it's going to be week 1 this season or week 7 or not even at all this year. We don't know. It's still in the hands of Judge Robinson to make that determination. I'm still curious with the timeline because she's had the briefs from both sides for about 2 weeks now. It's been reported they had the briefs. She got the briefs on July 12th. It's July 25th right now. I don't know how stringent she's going to be to the NFL calendar, considering the Browns training camp opens on Wednesday, that they really start to get things going this week. I'm sure everybody just wants to just kind of get this done, just kind of get it out of the way, and we'll go from there. But it's clear, based on the way that Judge Robinson is kind of operating on her own timetable right now.
And you also heard Albert Breer's thought that the NFL was coming out with high demands, and they were pretty visible, saying we want a year suspension, we want an indefinite suspension, with the thought being they probably aren't going to appeal this initial thing because it would look pretty bad if they do.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, because it's written in the CBA that way, it'd be a case they would win if by appealing, just overriding Judge Robinson's ruling to give the suspension they want. Yeah, they would win in court, but that would be a horrible look for the NFL, considering, as Albert Breer said, this is what a lot of owners wanted, and ultimately Roger Goodell answers to the owners. And I'm sure if it's as long as it's either no games or 4 to 6 games or whatever, it probably would be very unlikely they appeal, because I'm sure the owners, as much as anybody, as much as Roger Goodell, as much as Deshaun Watson, they just want this to be over. They just want this to be done and move on to the next thing, because this has been just such, a stain on the NFL, a stain on, all these different things that have gone on for the last 18 months with Deshaun Watson. I think everybody just kind of wants this to be over. But again, we got to wait on Judge Robinson to submit her findings and ultimately her decision before we can move on.
Yeah, they can't get the talk back onto the field quickly enough. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Deshaun Watson suspension.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. I'm tired of hearing people say, like, the Browns are going to be 4-4 if Deshaun's suspended for 8 games. Jacoby never had this kind of talent around him. I say the Browns go 6-2 if he's suspended for 8 games. He don't turn the ball over. He's smart. He can manage the game. So I say we go 6-2 if Deshaun's suspended 8 games. Thank you for taking my call. Bye.
All right, as always, appreciate all the voicemails. Played for the Patriots and the Colts, so there was some talent on both of those teams. The first 4 games aren't terribly tough for the Browns. Next 4 are pretty darn tough. So 6-2 might be asking a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly reasonable that even if Jacoby Brissett starts the first 4 games, because the toughest opponent by far in that schedule is Pittsburgh in week 3, certainly reasonable they go 3-1. But then you look at the next 4 games: home against the Chargers, home against the Patriots, at Baltimore, home against Cincinnati on the Monday night. I would be very hard-pressed to say Jacoby Brissett wins 3 of those. Very hard-pressed to think he can win 3 of those games. Maybe even 2 is a lot to ask for him, because, yes, he's steady. He's not going to turn the football over. But against those better teams, you also need your offense and your quarterback to go make plays and go be aggressive and make those touchdowns. And Jacoby Brissett is a very conservative quarterback as far as, taking his shots and whatever. He's not going to put you in jeopardy, but he's also not necessarily going to put you in the best position to win just by himself necessarily. He's a game manager, and against worse teams that can work, but against really good teams you need to have guys you can match up with better offenses, because it's the NFL. Just because you have a great defense doesn't mean you're going to be great on that particular day. The quarterbacks are just too good, the offenses are too good, the rules are so slanted to the offense where you could be a really good defense, and anytime you step on the field, you could still give up 30-plus points.
Keep in mind, there's a reason the Browns paid Deshaun Watson $230 million. It's because they trust him with the ball in his hand late in the game. I don't know that you have that same feeling with Jacoby Brissett. Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out outside the break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk some quarterback rankings. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the whole Deshaun Watson trade.
Yeah, hi. This is Ron Cornett from down here in Clayton, Ohio. And, I've been thinking about this Deshaun Watson thing and how, Baker being let go has pretty much split our fan base in half. And, I was just wondering, do you think this could have all been averted if the NFL would have stepped in and not allowed a trade to transpire until Deshaun Watson's problems were taken care of? Just wanted to know what you guys think about it. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Tim, I would say this. If the league tried to halt a trade, Players Union would have had a huge issue with that. And keep in mind, the Dolphins last year had a deal in place to acquire Watson, but they wanted all of the things settled before they made the deal. So it's kind of an independent thing. It's not the league's, it's just not their business to do that relative to the teams and players.
No question about it. I mean, obviously, if that was going to be the case where the NFL wasn't going to allow a trade to happen until, all this stuff got settled, we might be talking about Deshaun Watson for sure not playing until at least 2023, maybe even 2024, depending on how long these final civil suits take to be heard in court and to be tried in civil court before, these things kind of get wiped away. But, I mean, again, like you were saying, just kind of holding him off to the side and not letting him play just because, you don't know his status. Obviously, that won't fly. I mean, just because of his, status, because of how he's performed, he's still a name. And obviously, that would set a really bad precedent. If you're dealing with civil cases, but the NFL still tells you you're not allowed to play until these things get resolved, you're not allowed to find a new team until this gets resolved, it would just be a very messy situation if that were to happen.
Yeah, and you're probably looking at the union following some sort of right to work clause, litigation against the league at that point. All right, let's move on. So Mike Sando from The Athletic, ranking quarterbacks via tiers. So 6 of them in Tier 1. Aaron Rodgers 1, Patrick Mahomes number 2, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Joe Burrow. Those are the only 6 in Tier 1. In Tier 2, Deshaun Watson checking in at number 9. For those that are curious, Baker Mayfield was in Tier 3 at number 19. The other thing, Watson got marked down by some of the people that were part of this because they hadn't played. They're not sure what they're going to get after a year plus of inactivity. The one thing is his body has time to heal. That's a guy that's had 2 ACLs. So there's a plus and a minus to Watson not having played in a year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've said before that, it could take a couple games, I think, to knock some mental rust off because, again, he hadn't gotten those reps since the end of the 2020 season. He hasn't taken a hit until then. And, it's all well and good, all the preparation you do, as much staying in shape, but you really don't get up to speed in the NFL until you get hit. And that's just kind of the reality of the sport. And honestly, kind of where he is right now, I think 9th is kind of fair. Maybe I would have liked him a spot or two higher, I think. But I understand why they kind of put him there. And I think another reason why maybe that makes sense for right now, we haven't seen Deshaun Watson play a big game since 2019. Since the Texans went into Kansas City in the AFC divisional playoff, they had that big lead and then absolutely got blown out in that game. And I think a big reason, we haven't seen much of Deshaun Watson in those big playoff games because, frankly, the Texans team around him wasn't pretty good. And as we saw throughout his time in Houston, it got worse and worse and worse. And now he's coming into Cleveland with the talent that he's got around him, assuming he'll be able to get onto the field very quickly. There'll be more opportunities for bigger games, more opportunities to shine. And with a better team around him, a better offensive line in front of him, a better defense to get off the field, get some takeaways, kind of limit the possibility of those high-scoring shootouts with those top quarterbacks in the AFC, it gives Deshaun Watson a better chance to show more in those big games. And really, you only become a great quarterback and you really only show when you win those big games. And it's not just that Deshaun Watson didn't play at all in 2021. We just haven't seen him be in that spotlight in about 3 years. And it won't take long after he's ready to go before we see him be thrust into that kind of game.
All right, training camp gets underway Wednesday. Rookies are there. Deshaun Watson also reported early. But first workouts are Wednesday. Media will be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then fans can come in next week. Who's the player we should be most excited about? Who are you most excited to see kind of get on the field for training camp?
I think it's David Njoku, and I know it's hard. I mean, it's kind of weird to say David Njoku is going into his 6th season. Why should we get excited about him? He's been around the team for 5 years. Well, now he's going into his 6th season. He's still relatively young, especially considering how long he's already been in the NFL, but just got a big contract extension. He's now the #1 tight end and possibly the #2 receiving option on this team behind Amari Cooper. He's going to have an elite quarterback to play with in Deshaun Watson. I'm excited to see how he's utilized more because we've seen so many flashes of brilliance from him, particularly in that Chargers game last season when he really showed, I think, the most we've ever really seen from him in any game in his NFL career. I think, obviously this is his time to step up, and I think he's gonna be able to do it.
Yeah, that's a guy, every time I see him in person, I'm like, man, he's big, he's fast. He would appear to be a matchup nightmare, and for whatever reason, the Browns have not utilized him. You can be sure they're going to find a way to use him when you're paying him that kind of money. Who's a player you think could take a huge leap? Again, we get started with training camp on Wednesday. Let's ask you this before training camp gets going. Who do you think could take a big leap this year?
Oh, I'm looking at Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah for the big leap, and I know he's already established himself as a pretty good player. I don't think there's a question about it. When I say taking a big leap, I think he can get up. He has the potential to get as being one of the better linebackers in the National Football League, and it's clear from as soon as he kind of stepped on the field, particularly in that Bears game in Week 3, he showed just how special he is, how unique he is. In the 2 games against the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, you saw an example of why the Browns wanted to draft him and the way he was able to help try and slow down Lamar Jackson at times throughout those games. He only, of course, played 14 games last year with injuries played a role and kind of really took him out of the mix for, being in that Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. But he showed a lot of great things as a rookie. Now coming into year 2, he has a much better grasp of Joe Woods' defense. Woods should have a much better idea of how to utilize him. We should see a lot more of him. I think he's got a chance to really break out and be kind of one of those second-year breakout stars that you see year after year after year. And if he can do that, then all of a sudden the Browns got a very fascinating playmaker in that second level of the defense.
Yeah, keep in mind, he missed time at the beginning of training camp, and usually rookies have a tough time making it up. He was able to come back and kind of be a factor.
No question about it. I mean, that speaks to his, his intelligence and just his athleticism. And when you have those two kind of things, you got a really good chance to succeed in the NFL. And I mean, again, like you said, in spite of all that, he was still a pretty impactful player as a rookie, as a mid to late second round pick, which you don't always see, but there's a lot of flashes there. So I'm fascinated to see the kind of leap he takes.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk more about Browns training camp. They get underway in Berea with the veterans reporting Wednesday. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one with a potential trade idea for the Browns.
Hey, Dave, Doug from Cleveland. I got a quick trade proposal. What do you think about? How about since our running back room's overcrowded, send Earnest Johnson to the Atlanta Falcons for Calvin Ridley, even though he's suspended for the year? Would you make the move? Thank you, Dave.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, I like Calvin Ridley. I don't know that I'm in any hurry to trade any of our running backs just yet. I want to see how the beginning of the season plays out and how you use them. If you use two-back sets, you want 3 or 4 running backs like the Browns have that you can kind of keep people fresh still, but use the running backs to kind of attack the defense.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I don't know if I would not do that trade, especially because you don't know Ridley's status for 2023 and beyond. He's going to demand a big payday when he comes back from suspension. So there's a lot of things that wouldn't work with that contract, especially considering where the Browns are going to be at salary cap wise. In regards to whether you would move to Earnest Johnson, I mean, I would consider it depending on two things, depending on, what you get in compensation. Obviously, if someone's willing to offer you a 4th round draft pick for Earnest Johnson, you take that in a heartbeat, because I mean, with the way that the Browns are going to be salary cap wise for the next few years, stocking up on picks to get younger, cheaper options is always important. And I think it's also going to depend on how Jerome Ford and Demetrius Felton look at training camp. If those guys look like they can play, if they can get reps now in the backfield behind Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, then it maybe makes it more palatable to trade Earnest Johnson. But, I wouldn't do it right now. I would kind of take my time with it. Maybe at the end of training camp, if a running back goes down with injury, maybe that's when his value goes up. If you think his value is as high as he's going to get for the Browns, knowing he may never be your number 1 back with Hunt and Chubb there, you might have to consider pulling the trigger on a trade.
Yeah, I think, and I have nothing to base this on, just a hunch. With Watson and Brissett, I think Kevin Stefanski is likely to use some 2-back sets and really kind of give the quarterbacks the option, kind of that run-pass option with 2 backs, to put some pressure on the defense. Just a hunch. We'll see how that plays out. All right. Bleacher Report, predicting top training camp breakout players for the Browns. They're going to go with Donovan Peoples-Jones, 1 of 3. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who we've talked, 2 of 3. Grant Delpit, the safety, 3 of 3. Tim, Donovan Peoples-Jones played really well in camp last year. And then he really didn't take that next step. But I think people that are looking at that got to take a look at the picture. He was forced into the number 1 wide receiver role. He's not that. He's a good complementary, a 2 or a 3. He should not be the focus of your passing attack.
Definitely not at this point in his career. And I mean, people saying Donovan Peoples-Jones was a disappointment last season. I think you still have to look at, how he improved. I'm looking at his stats from 2020 to 2021. He improved his catches from 14 to 34. Yards almost doubled from 304 to 597. He only had 3 touchdowns compared to 2, but still a step forward. I think that's kind of an indicator that maybe he was still kind of raw. Again, he didn't have a lot of production at Michigan. Maybe there's questions about, how he was developed there. And sometimes, obviously as a 6th round pick, going to take a little extra time to develop him, to kind of get him more ready for that opportunity. But now playing a lot opposite of Amari Cooper with the potential for David Njoku to take a step forward now that he's the number 1 tight end, it takes more pressure off Peoples-Jones. And this year, I think he's got a chance to really step into a solid 2, maybe 3 role and continue that upward progression. I think that's just where you just want Donovan Peoples-Jones goes. Continue that upward progression. He can't stagnate. Just he needs to keep going forward. And I think he's got the tools to do that. I mean, certainly the size, the leaping ability. He's got good hands. He knows how to get down the field to make plays. That's a player I think the Browns should try to get involved a little more. And I think with Deshaun Watson, and so he'll have a better ability to get Donovan Peoples-Jones the ball that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones will benefit from Deshaun Watson being on the field as well. We talked about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah last segment. So Grant Delpit's another guy. I'm intrigued. He kind of falls into that category with JOK. The more I saw him on the field, the more it seemed like Joe Woods said, I can do this with him. I can do this. He used him in a number of different ways, all good for the Browns defense.
He's such a unique player. And I mean, there's a reason, he was a Thorpe Award winner in college. There was a reason, going into the 2019 college football season, he was considered maybe a top 10 pick. But obviously injury slowed him down and took him all the way to the 2nd round. And then, of course, ruptured the Achilles in the training camp that season, missed the entire year. And again, like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah last year, when Grant Delpit got in the field, you saw the instant impact, had that huge monstrous sack on Davis Mills in week 2 against the Texans that I think got a lot of people's attention, had a couple interceptions against Baltimore. He's got so many fun tools to work with. You see the coverage abilities there, and you also see just how good he is as a blitzer. I know the Browns don't blitz a lot, but I would imagine, that now that Grant Delpit's another year removed from the injury, another year in the offense, another year in the defense, and, just another year, getting that year of experience under his belt, I'm assuming we're going to see a Grant Delpit that's used in so many different ways, whether it's right up at the line of scrimmage or 15, 20 yards back playing deep zone, and to allow for the versatility in what could potentially be a 3 safety backfield, again, with John Johnson and Ronnie Harrison.
So I'm going to knock on wood here. The knock on him coming out of college was missed a lot of tackles. We didn't see that. I mean, everybody misses some tackles. It wasn't a huge problem with him. So we're going to knock on wood and try not to jinx him with that. All right. This is from your newsletter from cleveland.com that you wrote Saturday. Players under the most pressure. Take us through that, who you think and who you're keeping an eye on.
Well, I'll go from 3 to 1, and number 1 is kind of a 3-way tie. I'll understand why when I get there. I'll explain why when I get there. Number 3, I went Nick Harris just because, he's replacing a veteran, J.C. Tretter. Yeah, Nick Harris had a really good game when he had to fill in for J.C. Tretter when he was out with COVID, and Harris did well. Now it's going to be up to him now that he's the guy. How's he going to handle that load on a consistent basis? It's one thing to do it one week and look good, but stringing it together for weeks in practice. I know he's got veterans around him that can really help pick him up, help him continue to progress. But this is kind of his time. They're giving him the keys essentially. I know there's competition with Ethan Pocic and that other center spot but really Harris is the favorite. He's just going to have to continue to show he's worth that spot. Number 2, I went with Anthony Schwartz. Now, I've said before that he's a guy I thought we would only get whatever you got out of him as a rookie was going to be considered a bonus, that he was a 2022 and later guy. Now it's 2022. The Browns really haven't gone much for veteran receiver help outside of Amari Cooper. Anthony Schwartz has that deep threat gear that this team desperately needs. We really didn't get to see too much of it, but with Deshaun Watson and how aggressive he is, I think that he's got a chance to have a bigger role. It's just going to be up to Schwartz to show that, he's developed more nuance, that, he's become more of a football player as opposed to a sprinter. He seems like he's put in a lot of good work, that he's got a pretty good work ethic, so it's reasonable to expect that he's going to make those steps and become a more productive part of the offense. So number 1, again, I went with a 3-way tie here because really it's these 3 guys and then kind of everybody else. It's Jordan Elliott, Tommy Togiai, and Perion Winfrey. And the reason being is the Browns obviously did not put a lot of resources into defensive tackle and free agency. They signed Taven Bryan. He's not an elite player, but he should at least be able to hold down one of the starting spots. The way that position is going to go is going to be incumbent on one of those 3 taking the starting job, not just being given the starting job. I'm talking they show up to camp and they absolutely just say, this job is mine, I'm going to take it. And then they show up with their play day in, day out. They stay healthy. And I think obviously that's what the Browns have to be hoping for, is that one of those guys just comes in, is just dominant, a guy that you can't possibly keep out of the starting lineup, that has to play a majority of the snaps in the middle. Maybe, of course, obviously, maybe a guy you take out for pass rush purposes to kick a guy like Myles Garrett or Jadeveon Clowney inside. But I feel like the worst case would be for the Browns if they had to just pick a guy to start. Because if you're picking a guy to start, it probably means none of those 3 guys stood out in practice. None of those 3 guys really took the job, which would obviously, again, be the worst case scenario. The goal is one of those guys has to go out and be the guy to be the starting defensive tackle, because Andrew Berry's invested 3 straight mid-round picks into these defensive tackles. One of them's got to perform.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for a young guy there to kind of cement his role as a starter and kind of earn another contract. So, go take advantage of the opportunity. Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also, take a look at some undrafted free agents in the Browns training camp. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the whole situation with the Browns.
Hello, cleveland.com and Sports4CLE. Dave Bacon. It's been a long time, but I have yet again returned to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. After a great show, I just want to say I can't help but have this sinking feeling in my gut that yet again, the NFL will take no shorts or no losses at any extent to minimize the Cleveland Browns and humiliate the city of Cleveland. Great show. Your guests did a really fine job of explaining the details, and I tend to agree with them, as well as a lot of the callers. But man, it's just really hard for me to look past what I know, and that is the NFL does not spare any expense to make fun of the Browns. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I appreciate it. Never a bad show, man. Thank you. Goodbye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, it's kind of why fans have the OIC, only in Cleveland mantra. But again, I don't think the league has it out for him. It seems like for whatever reason, it's been a cycle with the Browns and all Cleveland teams for that matter.
Yeah, I don't know why they would have just picked on the Browns for 20-plus years. I mean, there have been plenty of franchises that have kind of been, at that level or worse. I mean, you talk about, like, for example, the New York Jets. I'm sure they could some of their fans could be saying the same thing, for example, when really they have only had a couple successful years, in the last 20. And for the Browns, I mean, I understand the sentiment from fans. Obviously, the team has not been very good since they've been back. I do think in some ways in the NFL more than those other sports, you kind of have to make your own luck. I mean, in the NBA, even the NHL to a certain extent, you have to get lucky in terms of getting that franchise-changing player. In the NFL, you make your own draft position based on how you play and who you hire and all those certain things. And, the Browns have just not made good decisions in the past 20-plus years. I think we can all agree upon that. But it doesn't seem like it would be in the best interest of the NFL to just knock the Browns down like that. I mean, what purpose would that serve? I mean, teams go from bad to good all the time. And again, it just comes down to the decision-making each team makes. And again, if you make bad decisions, you're typically not going to get rewarded for that.
Yeah, and constant change in any organization usually doesn't work. And that's what it's been with the Browns. There have been too many changes. There haven't been a standard philosophy. It seems, appears. Hopefully, they've settled on Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta. We'll see. All right, top 10 defenders according to Pro Football Focus. Number 1, Aaron Donald. Hard to argue with that. T.J. Watt ranked number 2. Myles Garrett checks in at number 3. You see the rest of the top 10. Tim, that's pretty fair. I can't argue with that. I do think Myles Garrett is still ascending. Think about that. A guy that's that good and has been good for that. I think he is still approaching his best football.
Yeah, he's got plenty of years of prime left in him. And I would agree with you. This list at the top 3 looks pretty sound. I mean, Aaron Donald's doing things we've probably never seen a defensive tackle do. I mean, defensive tackles are not supposed to impact the game the way that Aaron Donald does and just be an absolute game wrecker in the middle. You just don't see that. We've never seen that, and it's understandable why he's number 1, and good for him that he got a Super Bowl ring. Number 2, T.J. Watt makes a lot of sense. I mean, reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 21, he just almost unstoppable getting a quarterback. I know Browns fans don't want to hear that, but that's just the reality, and they've seen it. I know the Madden football game doesn't necessarily agree with those rankings because they had Garrett rated higher than T.J. Watt in that by about 3 ratings points. And I know I actually did a fun little story about that Steelers fans were pretty up in arms about that. They weren't happy about that. But, I think this is a fair place for Garrett. We really, as good as he is, we haven't really seen him put, an amazing Defensive Player of the Year season together. He's been kind of slowed down at the end of the last couple of seasons, whether it be suspension in 2019, contracting COVID-19 in 2020, or being slowed down in 2021 at the end to a groin injury. The next step for him is to be consistent from week 1 all the way to the end and into the playoffs. If he can do that, he can be in that Defensive Player of the Year category. And the fact that he's pretty much already there, all things considered, is a testament to just his natural ability.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that Madden stuff is based on the physical traits, and he's got a lot of really good physical traits. All right, best undrafted free agent at every NFL training camp. This is from the Bleacher Report. And for the Browns, they go with Sean Jolly, cornerback from Appalachian State. length and run supportability are questions for the smaller Jolly's ability to play outside or nickel could make him a valuable depth piece for the Cleveland Browns. And again, Tim, Jolly, he's an intriguing guy, and the Browns are really deep at cornerback.
Yeah, absolutely. They are. It is understandable why he's listed on there as the most interesting undrafted free agent, because the Browns are clearly operating on the model that you can't have enough corners. I mean, just look at the depth chart. You got Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Greedy Williams, all could certainly start. Newsome will probably go into the slot. AJ Green took a nice step forward, showed a lot of promises. In 2021, they drafted Martin Emerson in the 3rd round to potentially be a starter, in the future. So, I mean, you clearly can't have enough corners, especially in the AFC when you're going against so many good quarterbacks. You just need to have – the Browns are trying to operate under the idea that you just have this endless assembly line of corners. I know you can only have so many because of a 53-man roster, but to have as many guys who can cover – as possible in these days of 3 receivers, 4 or 5 even on the field of one. Need guys to be fresh, to be able to roll through a 17-game season because of injuries, because of fatigue and all those things. It'll be interesting to see if Sean Jolly can steal a spot, especially considering, the Browns traded away Troy Hill, who had been their nickel corner. I know they want to try Newsome inside, but getting more depth at that slot corner position, which is more important than it's ever been. He's a guy I'm going to keep my eye on.
Yeah, I'm with you. And just think of all of the talented quarterbacks in the AFC, and that is why you need as many cornerbacks that can cover the wide receivers as possible. Tim Bielik, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day and happy training camp.
All right, Tim Bielik from cleveland.com, as well as the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily on the other side of the break. Some bold predictions from Browns training camp. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. So 5 bold predictions for Browns training camp from Dog Pound Daily. Number 5, the Browns will trade one of their running backs. Competition at running back will revolve around which player wins the 4 spot. You see Ford, the rookie, Felton. You also have Hunt, Chubb, and Earnest Johnson. Let's welcome in Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. Eddie wrote this 5 bold predictions. So take us through. Do you think one of the running backs gets traded during camp?
I actually did not write that. That was John Suchan.
Okay.
But I don't think one of them gets traded. If anything, I think one of them gets released because Chubb is obviously safe. Jerome Ford is obviously safe. The other three are up in the air. If one gets traded, I think it would be Kareem Hunt, just because he has more value. And if it was Earnest Johnson, for example, there was a bunch of teams that could have got him. Any team could have, went out and tried to sign him. But yeah, and Felton, I think, is the odd man out of that room. So I think he gets released. I don't think anyone gets traded unless a team, goes in the first week or two of camp and, one of their guys goes down. Oh, we need someone. Maybe they do take a chance at Earnest Johnson, or maybe they give up a little bit more for Kareem Hunt. But I don't necessarily think that one of them gets traded.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, especially with a suspension coming, the Browns may want as many of the running backs as they have to keep them fresh. I also think they're going to do some two-back sets. I had mentioned that earlier. I think that'll be a staple. All right, number 4, Perrion Winfrey wins the starter's job on the defensive line. And that is a key, that defensive tackle spot, both of them. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. What are your thoughts? You think Perrion Winfrey claims one of those 2 D tackle spots?
I do, actually. I think it'll be him and Taven Bryan. I think that just what we've seen from him in college and him in the rookie camp, I think he is primed for this. It's almost his to lose in a sense because they don't really have anyone else there. They still have one roster spot. Could they sign a Sheldon Richardson or a Dominican Sue or someone like that? Sure. I don't think that's the route they want to go. I think they're going to roll with their young guys, but I absolutely think that Winfrey will be a starter come week 1.
All right, number 3. This one is an interesting one. Remember, we said bold predictions. Josh Rosen wins the backup job. Everyone in the world is expecting Jacoby Brissett to be the backup of the season. Could likely start week 1. Deshaun Watson is suspended for any length of time. What is the likely outcome if Brissett goes down with an injury? So what do you think? I'm having a tough time seeing Josh Rosen taking meaningful snaps here.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I read this. I think it came out Sunday morning or Saturday morning, one of the two. And I text our, site editor, and I was like, he didn't really think that's a bold prediction. Like, that's going to happen, right? And he's like, yeah, he did. I almost blocked him from it. So, no, I don't think so. Rosen has had, this is like his 4th or 5th team in his career. And, he drafted the same draft as Baker Mayfield. I absolutely do not see that as a thing. They signed Brissett for a reason. I would be 1,000% shocked if Rosen went in there in the camp and balled out and took that spot from Jacoby Brissett, because Brissett, they signed him because he's going to start for Watson. We don't know the amount of games yet. I thought that would drop today. It has not. But I don't think Josh Rosen is the answer. I don't even know if he makes the team. He might as the 3rd stringer. I'm not sure even that, though.
Yeah, he may be a practice squad guy, and people are all up in arms. I have no issue with you. This is a guy that was the 10th overall pick. You get him in, you see if you can find something that he does well, work on it, build on it, and you may be able to develop him into something. If you're the 10th pick in the draft, you have some talent. He just hasn't been able to put it together in the NFL at this point. Number 2, David Bell wins the 3rd wide receiver competition. That would not surprise me in the least.
That, I think, might be one of the most accurate predictions that John made in this piece. They drafted him for a reason. He is essentially going to be Jarvis Landry 2.0. Now, that does not mean he's going to have the success Jarvis had in his career, or is it, he's going to be as productive. But he does a lot of similar things as Jarvis Landry. I know he's dealing with a foot injury right now. I believe Mary Kay Cabot said that he would be out up to 2 weeks, or he could return in 2 weeks. So I'm not really worried about that. I said last night on a show that I'm not worried about a 2-week absence. I know that's to get reps in and stuff, but I think getting him healthy, and once he's healthy, I think that 3rd spot is his. I think he can compete a little bit for the 2nd spot, but 3rd spot, absolutely.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is, rookies that miss the first part of training camp, it's always an uphill battle. So that does concern me. He's on the physically unable to perform list. They say it's not expected to be serious, but wide receiver and foot, I don't like hearing that. You need to be able to cut. You need the explosion. Even if you are a quote-unquote possession kind of guy like he is. So we'll see how that plays out. Number 1, Jacob Phillips will get the start at linebacker. An intriguing guy that has been beat up and battled injuries first couple of years. When he gets on the field, there's some things to like about him, and I wouldn't at all be surprised if he ends up as one of the starting linebackers.
I love Jacob Phillips, and I think that this is a possibility, a realistic possibility, but he has to stay healthy. He's had some health issues throughout his career, and I think if you match up him with JOK, I think that's an explosive linebacking crew. They're both fast. They're both versatile. They both read the ball very well. Good ball skills. Like once they get there, good tackling skills. I would absolutely love for this to be a thing.
All right, we're going to take a look at camp predictions for each NFL team. This is from ESPN.com, and we kind of alluded to this a little bit. They predict that the Earnest Johnson gets traded, coming off breakout season, filling in for Chubb and Hunt when they were injured. 1-year extension. They mentioned Ford on the back end. They also have Felton. Let me ask you this. What would it take for you to trade Earnest Johnson? In other words, would it be a third-round pick? Would it be a fourth-round pick? Would it be a veteran depth piece, wide receiver, defensive tackle? What would you want to feel good about trading Earnest Johnson?
That's actually a great question that I'd never even thought of until you just asked it. I would say if not a third-round pick, third or fourth round, I wouldn't go any lower than a fourth. I know we don't have a very big sample size of Earnest Johnson, but last year in 3 starts, he proved that he could be a fringe starter. I think he's more of a running back too for a lot of teams. I don't think he's going to go to any team and just start out the gate if he is traded. I wouldn't mind though if they did trade like for a defensive tackle or a wide receiver, sort of like the Mack Wilson trade earlier this year when they got Chase Winovich. They gave up a linebacker and got a lineman. So if we can do something like that where we flip him into somebody else, that would be perfect for me. But yeah. I just don't know if he's the one that's traded.
Yeah, I agree. All of those running backs are intriguing because they've shown flashes. They have different skills, and I think all of them can be successful in the NFL, which is why I'm not in a hurry to trade any of those 4 top running backs. Eddie McDonald, Dawg Poundaley, and I, as well as the 216 Network. Eddie, also the content creator for Network 216. We're going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, some training camp position battles and some wide receivers the Browns might have their eye on. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald from Dawg Poundaley. He's also the content creator for Network 216. Eddie, let's talk about some position battles during training camp. And the 2 that jump out, wide receiver, defensive tackle. Just kind of lay of the land, what you think might happen with each of those.
So the receiver position intrigues me a lot. I think we know the first 3. Amari Cooper is going to be number 1. More than likely, Donald Peoples-Jones is going to be number 2. And as we talked about earlier, I think David Bell is the 3rd one despite having an injury right now. It's the back half of that I wouldn't say it concerns me, but it's going to be exciting to see which young players. So they have a lot of undrafted free agents. One of my favorites is Isaiah Weston. He's long and athletic and a speed guy, not so much as Anthony Schwartz, who is also in that mix. But I'm very excited to see what some of these guys do. And, the wide receiver position isn't, jumping out at anyone. It's not going to scare anybody. Amari Cooper is who he is. He's very good. Dontae Jones has grown from year 1 to year 2, and hopefully he grows again in year 3. David Bell, we don't know what he is yet at an NFL level. Hopefully we find out relatively soon as he gets back and recovers from injury. But Anthony Schwartz should be in that mix, and Isaiah Weston, I'm very high on him. I'm excited to see what he does coming up.
Yeah, and it's intriguing. Schwartz played really well in the opener. Then they had the miscommunication with Baker, the route and all that, and then he suffered a concussion, so he couldn't really get right. Defensive tackle, what do you see? How do you see that shaking out? Who are you intrigued to see?
So we talked about Perrin Winfrey. He's almost the obvious choice for every Browns fan out there. If you watched him after he got drafted and through this, he just has that energy that fans love to feed off of, and especially Cleveland fans. So I think he gets one of those spots, and I think Taven Bryan gets the other spot. But I would not rule out only one of those two getting it, and them rushing or using 3 edge rushers, so Miles and Jadeveon on the edges, and then put like a Chase Winovich in between them, or put Chase on the edge and put Clowney in the middle. I wouldn't rule it out, so I'm excited to see where that goes. We did talk about earlier, maybe they sign someone. I don't know if that's a possibility now. I know camp is a few days away from opening for everyone, but I'm really excited to see what this position battle comes, because to me, that's the quote-unquote weakest of the team. But not that, defensive tackle is one of those positions going to win or lose you games, unless you have like an Aaron Donald, of course, which we do not have right now.
You also wrote an article. Do you still see the potential for maybe a Sheldon Richardson reunion in the event that they want to look at the young guys, and they'll get a better sense just watching them develop? There are certain things they want to see from them, and if they don't see them, do you think Sheldon Richardson is a guy they go out and look for?
I absolutely think he is a guy to look for, and I think I wrote earlier in this offseason that he's a target of mine for defensive tackles and whatnot, because Mary Kay Cabot said that Ndamukong Suh was not ever on the Browns' radar. There's always been a lot of chatter between them, and I even wrote about it'd be cool if Suh came in. He's 35, so that's probably not happening, especially if he wasn't even on his radar, or on the Browns' radar, excuse me. But with Richardson, he's been here before. He left over money. And I get that. I'm all for that. I respect that. But now I think, he saw last year he played, I think he started 7 games out of the 17. Then his stats went down from with the Browns from a season ago. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And plus, with those rookies and the young guys that they have, he can be one of those veteran leaders that, hey, this is the way, this is how you do things in the NFL. This is how you do things to get better. This is how you do things week to week. So I think it's a home run on all accounts. Whether Andrew Berry and company think that as well, we will wait and see.
All right, before we let you go, this is from Dog Pound Daily as well. 3 free agent wide receivers to target if David Bell's injury lingers. So number 3, Chester Rogers, undrafted out of Grambling State 2016. Played with the Colts for a while. Decent receiver. You see the numbers there, 111 catches, 5 touchdowns. Number 2, D.D. Westbrook. 4th-round pick out of Oklahoma, played with the Jaguars for a little bit, went to the Vikings, but really unable to make an impact. And number 1, this name just keeps lingering, in part because of the chemistry and success he's had with Deshaun Watson. Will Fuller, 1st-round pick of the Texans 2016, has been a pretty good deep threat, had some chemistry with Deshaun Watson. When you look at that, again, we're assuming that this injury kind of lingers. Who intrigues you the most out of all of those?
It's absolutely Will Fuller, and I've wrote a few times about that I think he would be a good fit here. He does have some speed. He's not Anthony Schwartz speed. I don't think there's anyone on the roster, and there's not many in the league that have Anthony Schwartz speed. So hopefully that gets figured out. But I just think with that chemistry factor is a big deal, especially if Watson, let's say he's suspended 4 games, and that's just, almost best case scenario there. Fuller, sometimes he has an injury history, so I don't know if he's going to come into camp banged up. I don't know if he has any lingering injuries from last year. But if that's the case, they can ease in together. But I think he makes the most sense. I wouldn't mind either the other two, Rodgers or Westbrook. I think they'd be like a 5th or 6th guy on the depth chart, depending how camp goes. But I am absolutely in favor of them signing Will Fuller. But the injury history does scare me a little bit, and that's why I'm hesitant to hammer down my fist on the desk, so to say.
Yeah, and I get that. The other thing I would say is Jakeem Grant's going to be on this roster, and I know he's more of a gadget guy, but that is a guy with some speed and some quickness that you can use inside as well.
Yeah, that Grant is someone I think a lot of fans overlook the signing of, and it's almost like one of those forgotten signings that I think is going to be really beneficial for the Browns, more so for the return game. He's going to return the punts, he's going to return the kicks, and if Felton's still on the roster, he gets to learn from a veteran who's made the Pro Bowl for being a returner. But he's also going to be a guy that they're going to use as one of those gadget plays, and maybe some end arounds or maybe some quick screens and take off. So I'm glad you said him, because a lot of people, myself included sometimes, honestly, I forget that we signed him, and I'm just like, wow. I look back on it, you said that, and I'm like, wow, that was a pretty good signing there. Very underrated signing.
Eddie McDonald, Dawg Pound Daily, also content creator for Network 216. Eddie, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. And if you subscribe to the Network 216 Twitch stream by Sunday, you have a chance to win 4 training camp tickets for, I believe it's August 9th. I might have the date wrong. I think it's the 9th. So tune into that and subscribe and check us all out.
All right. Again, Network 216, go subscribe. Might be headed to training camp. Eddie, always good stuff. Appreciate it, man. That's going to do it. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. Tomorrow, special show from Mac Media Day. We will also have any Deshaun Watson updates if his suspension length and decision is rendered. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 from Mac Media Day.